Hello YouTube. Well, today I'm starting on a new project to improve my life on the bus. I've noticed that, well, I like to curl up on the couch here and read. Trouble is, not really good lighting at this end of the couch. There is a pathway light at the other end, but that's general lighting. It's not so much really good enough to read by. I can sit here at the table and use the overhead light to read, but it's just not comfortable to sit here for an extended length of time. I could go back to my bed and lay down and read, but I like it out here, especially in hot days where I can open up windows, get a little bit more breeze through. So that's problem number one. Problem number two isn't really a problem so much as I've hung my curtains on paracord and held up with paper clips. I didn't think about it when I put in the eye bolts, so like this curtain doesn't totally clear the window. And so I thought I would solve two problems with one solution. What I'm going to do is put up a piece of copper pipe, it's 1/2 inch, and use that as the curtain rod. But in the center, or centered up on on the second window in, is I'm putting in a T. Off the T, I'm going to put an elbow, and I'm still trying to decide whether I want to have it up or down. And then at the end of the elbow, I put this little flare so that I can epoxy on a light socket. This is going to be 12 volt, and the lights or the bulbs I'm going to pick up are LED Edison style bulbs. Jax Austin's got them, and they throw a lot of light. The idea is that would put a light right over where my head would be here on the couch, and actually off of my left shoulder here at the table. And I'm trying to decide whether I should put it so that it's going to be coming out here. It'd have to come out a ways for the bulb to go up. So I'm thinking I'm just going to have it so the bulb is hanging down. So what I've got to do is, I'm going to use these bell style holders that will keep the pipe away from the wall and give clearance for the curtains to run. And I'm going to solder them together just as though I was doing it as a water pipe or a water line. Water pipes are different. And then I'll run the wires through it. So the wires are all going to be hidden. It comes close enough to the ends. I'm going to make it so it goes down this end of the window all the way. There will be a little bit of a gap up at the other end, just because it's just a hair over 10 feet. So I am going to dig out all my plumbing stuff, the pipe cutters and all that, and let's get to soldering this together, and hopefully I can get all this together and at least get started on hanging up the curtains today. And I've got to order the bulbs, so when I get the bulbs, that's when you'll see the end of this video. But let's get to building this and at least get the curtains hung up. The first step in this process is going to be figuring out the length of pipes. I bought a small piece to join all this together. So I've decided to come out from the wall 4 inches. So I'm going to mark to 4 inches, and then the piece between, that's going to be the piece that comes off of the T out to the elbow. And for the elbow into the flare fitting, they are each from here to here about 1/2 inch deep. So I could, if I cut it an inch, there's no spot for me to get the solder in there. So I'm going to cut it 1.25 inches. So it's going to come out 4 inches from the wall and then 1.25 inches down. And I decided to hang the bulbs down because I don't think there's enough room up to the ceiling. So in order to do that, I measured out here that 4 inches and wherever I marked it, and then I can come out here to the 5.25 and mark that. That's the 2 pieces I need for one of them, and hopefully the cat won't knock down the camera. Now, couple of tools that I find are really nice for cutting. You can get a regular tubing cutter. I like this style. It opens up, fits over it. There's a cutting edge that I can line up on the hole or on the mark I made, which is right there. And then you clamp it shut, and there's actually an arrow on the back showing me which way to turn it. Nothing like slippery hands or pair of channel locks just to get it. Then I just keep turning it in the direction of the arrow, and it's spring loaded, so it will cut right through it. There we go. That's cut to length. Reason I like this style of tubing cutter is I can get into spaces that are that small. And if you're working with old pipes, this is nice because if you've got a broken pipe or something, you can get this in there and cut it. I've got one for 1/2 inch, one for 3/4. So let me get this other piece cut and go from there. Okay, so we got the 2 pieces cut. The next thing is to clean off the ends. You don't want to have this oxidation or any kind of coating that will interfere with the solder, and especially important if you're doing water lines, because you really want this to go clean. What I like is these, you can actually use a battery terminal cleaner. These come also in 1/2 inch and 3/4. You basically just stick it on the end of the pipe, twist it, and it cleans it up real nice. And I'm gonna get both ends clean. So you get a nice and shiny metal, and then you're gonna do the same thing with what it's going into. And they make these wire brushes that you just stick them right inside, give them a few twists, cleans the inside nice and shiny. Same thing. You can do it with steel wool, sandpaper. I just happen to like these brushes because then I don't end up with little bits of steel wool in my fingers. And so let's see, we got that. I clean up all the other pieces here, and then once that's done, then you take and get a little bit of this paste or flux, and I've had this for a while. One little tube lasts quite a while, and I just get a little bit on my finger, and actually should use my little finger, and just get a little coating on the inside. This helps the solder flow, and so you get a nice, once you heat it up, this will like I said, helps the solder flow in there and flow into the joints, and we'll end up with a nice, nice tight fitting. So let me get all this cleaned up, and then we'll move on to solder. All right. So this is definitely 90 degrees because of the T, and I want this to be 90 degrees off so that the bulb hangs nice and straight. And the ideal way to solder these is put the heat to one side and touch the solder to the other side. It will, once the solder gets hot enough to, or gets hot enough to, the joint hot enough to flow, it'll flow. The flux helps the solder get sucked right into the joint. So let's get this heated up here a little bit. And because it's copper pipe, it will actually, the heat will travel up the pipe from joint to joint. And it will even travel uphill a little bit. Ideally, you want to, especially on a thing like this, you want it to look pretty, so you don't want a bunch of solder hanging out. That looks pretty straight. Gotta remember it's really hot. And I'm going to, there's a little bit of solder drip down on this lower joint. So what I'm going to do is just heat this up so the solder melts, and then wipe off the excess drip. Basically, make it a little prettier, because again, it is going to be my curtain rod. There's a little drip up here. I'm not heating it up to the point where the joint's going to come loose, just enough to get that solder on the outside off and make it pretty. And that looks pretty good as far as being 90 degrees. And there we go. Now, this one is, you'll notice that they're opposites. This one goes on the passenger side, and this one goes on the driver's side. So let me take this in, and then we'll epoxy the fitting on. If these were out of alignment a little bit, I could heat the joint up back here and twist this as needed, but I think they're pretty good the way they are. So the next step is take these and glue them onto that. But you notice the difference in the color. And I have got some paint that is a hammered copper, closer in color. So what I'm going to do is paint these and the actual fitting or the housing for it. I'm going to paint those with that paint. Then I'm going to use this two-part epoxy. It's a Gorilla epoxy, sets in 5 minutes, clear. And I'm going to put a little bit around the edge here, set that in place, and let it epoxy in. So let me find the paint and see if I can paint these outside in the wind. Alright, so I got these painted sort of a coppery color. I think they're going to look pretty good with that. They blend in. And so next step is, if I can get this cover off, That ought to be enough. I got 5 minutes to work with this, and it's got the two different kinds. Basically, you know, mix them together. It dries clear. That's where having a little plastic straw is nice, if you can find them. So what I'm going to do is just put a little bit around the edge here. And then set it in place. I just figure when you're working with epoxy, it's a good idea to wear the gloves. So we're just going to let that set up and then get to hanging them up. And before I do, I'll show you how I'm going to get the electric wires through this. Oh, the thing I learned, if you take the one glove and then get it in your fist and then turn the other glove like that, then all the gunk is on the inside. And I learned that in a first aid class. All right, it's a little messy here, but I need to get a piece of twine through this angle, this one down and out the other end to be able to pull the wire through. And I've duct taped the other end, and this is a little trick I learned. I took a little piece of plastic bag, I'm going to tie it onto the twine. I use the vacuum cleaner at that end to be sucking pull this plastic bag through and pull the twine, and then we can leave it in there, and when it's time to pull wire, we just tie the wire on and pull it through. So let's see how this goes. Alright, this is how it came out. I think it came out pretty nice. And I've got one on behind me so you can really see how this is. I'm going to get a wire cage to go over this and turn it into a lampshade so that it comes down to about here. I'll have bright light down but a little warmer glow. So let me show you what it looks like. That's what it looks like when one is on. So I'm going to turn this off for a second. And this is actually how the bus is at night with the LED strips on and the light here over the table. So in a second I will turn those both on. When I'm recording in the evenings, when I'm doing one of these little explanation things, this is the light I've used. I do have a camera light that I used for fill light before, but I want to see how these work as far as fill lights the way they are. So let me just jump up, I'm going to turn them both on, and we'll see how that how it brightens it all up, and hopefully it will make filming this kind of segment a little bit better. So let me just jump up and turn those on. Well, there you go. That's with all of the lights on. And if I turn off the LED strips, because they really aren't doing anything. So this is just the overhead light and the two new lights. Again, they are the warm or cool light, not the warm light. So they're white and harsh as opposed to the warmer yellowish color that we get actually out of like the one above me. So I am going to put shades to give it a warm glow up but a bright light down, because basically they're here for helping me over on the couch reading and stuff, and hopefully they're doing a little bit better job as fill lights too. So there you go, that's my latest upgrade, and I'm gonna let you go, and we'll see. By the way, the as curtain rods, these are working out real nice, so I'm getting a lot better. I liked them so much I put copper pipes in the curtains on the bed. So I'll see you later, YouTube.